Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, artists, musicians, you name it, in crypto and blockchain all around the world. And today I have an amazing guest coming to us from East Denver. His name is Jackson Rodriguez. He's the founder of 3RM. I'm looking forward to this interview. And Jackson, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and I'm really looking forward to chatting. So I really appreciate you making some time to chat and connect.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm snowed in today where I live, so it's great. Perfect. Um, so let me ask you first to kick things off. Is this what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yes, I tend to think so. I come from a bit of I would say an untraditional story, but it does tie together. My first real job was I was a business development representative for a small financial technology company in Sacramento, where I'm from. And I was doing 10 to 15 cold calls an hour or a demo for my AE an hour. And that started at 6 a.m. On the West Coast. Financial markets open very early. So I would be in bright and early. And I remember, that was my first exposure to really efficient sales operations to where I was able to hop in. I had a speed dialer. I knew the location of where I was calling. I would do research on the local sports team to get past the gatekeeper. And I would hop into conversations and move through just trying to figure out and stumbling through calls. And I did that for about a year and a half. And that was about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. And I really wanted to get promoted to an account executive, but they wouldn't let me because I still had to go to college. And so I ended up leaving and I was decided to start my own marketing company. I had no idea how to do any digital marketing, but I knew how to do BD. So I would always tell the joke where I was incredible at selling digital marketing, but I was horrible at providing the service. So I ran the social media for a state congressional campaign in Nevada from my college dorm. Unfortunately, the candidate lost. That's mostly because I was YouTubing how to do all the proper steps. I ran a national linen retailer social, had 30 chains all the United States. I ran socials for Buckhorn Grill, a small chain here on the West Coast. And that was where I really got the fascination of building and kind of getting this growth perspective of BD marketing tied together. I ended up moving to the Bay Area, and very quickly I realized that my small startup in Sacramento didn't translate all that well to really well-funded startups. And so I moved into the whole startup atmosphere. Was absolutely infected by the energy and the drive of everyone around me. And that was when I moved more into a growth role. And so growth, I like to call the intersection of product marketing and sales. I also like to call it a way to get underpaid to do everything. So it was a very interesting capacity. And when I joined Web3 a year ago, this is where it all ties together. I was working for a wallet company and I was reaching out to DApp developers to grow our DApp developer ecosystem. And the only way I knew how to do it efficiently, that was a surefire way, was BD, cold outreach. And in that process, I just started dialing and I found really quickly that there's new telecommunication channels. Anon and pseudo anon identity are very difficult to track. The fluidity of contributors are really, really hard to know who's at what project and who has responsible for the correct thing. And sales operations were a disaster. But more importantly, what I found out too is that there's this really large distrust in cold outreach in Web3. And that's very difficult for people entering the space, with phishing, scams, identity, all these different problems that people don't click on links. I find it really difficult to even get in touch until I went to conferences. And when I went to conferences, people then got to see me in person. They knew I was real. And that's when this whole project started, was because of my belief is that this space cannot be taken seriously or grow until we get everyone off of the conference circuit and crypto Twitter and we figure out scalable, repeatable sales operations. And so that was when I started my journey about a year ago. And I've just been piecing together my background over time, and the jack of all trades style has come out. And I'm very, very happy with what we're doing now and how we're pioneering the space.
You said a few things there that I agree with automatically. Um, yeah, I need to be going to more conferences to meet more people because I do my podcast in my basement, but I do know what it's like to not get paid, too. But you got to love what you do, you know. Um, so let me ask you this: what is 3RM all about, and why is what you're doing now necessary? More than ever before in Web 3.
It's a great question. So originally, when I started this project, I wanted to become the best BD person in Web3. That was just the general goal. So I built a database of 1,600 various Web3 companies, and I just did cold outreach to every single one to figure out how to do BD in Web3. And I wouldn't ask for anything. I just figure out who's the decision maker, how can I automate this, what do I need to track, and I did that for about 2 months. What that led to was I built a CRM that's very similar to Web2 CRMs, with the exception that we had wallet activity and Telegram and Twitter. However, I found that a lot of the problems with CRMs in this space are that they're not taking the advantages of the benefits of Web3 technology, and that we'd be going down the same mistakes that B2B has with data ownership, tracking, and a lot of the processes that can't be scaled. So what we're doing, I think, is very different. Is that we have built originally, now we're releasing now, is a Telegram integration CRM. So you're able to bring in all your conversations from Telegram into a team-wide view. So it gets a previously siloed channels, which we'll call single player for simplicity's sake, into a multiplayer view. We don't bring any chat info. We don't bring in any of the context. All we provide is the title of the group, the users, and the last time a message was sent, and a link to jump to that conversation in Telegram. So what this provides is for teams to be able to see who their team members are talking to. They can join the conversation without asking for the invite link or getting all the properties set up. And that expands to a lot of really scalable sales operations. That product is going to stay free forever because I'm so passionate about sales operations that when I started building this a year ago, people were in the wag me attitude. The bull market was running. No one really cared what we were doing at that time. Unfortunately, with Luna, FTX, and all these collapses, people need scalable, repeatable sales operations more than ever. So now we have this influx of teams that are coming to us and saying, we need to use this tool yesterday. And so what we're seeing is by keeping this free, we're able to really provide the baseline layer of effective operations while not compromising on privacy. And from there, we see a really great opportunity to expand into prospecting, enrichment, and the B2B sales infrastructure layer of Web2, but enabling it with Web3 technology. And so that's what we're doing here at ETH Denver's. We're talking to a lot of people about ZK. We're talking to people about verifiable credentials, decentralized identifiers, and really, what the benefits of all these technologies are, in the vision that I see, is that there are really great ways to allow the organization and the individual to own that access, own their data, excuse me, and share access to that data to populate CRM data going forward. So that way, you never have to do data entry ever again. If I connect with you, you can release all the info to my CRM about your org and about yourself that you feel comfortable releasing to me. And anytime you update that data, it'll populate in my CRM, and you have complete control and ownership over that data. I'm not going to Clearbit anymore. I'm not going to Apollo. I'm not just scraping it. It's data that you have complete control and access to. And we think we can keep expanding down other B2B channels. And so that's the grand vision of what we're trying to build, is the B2B infrastructure for Web3 to be able to sell effectively to each other in whatever form of communication channel, in whatever form of identity, in whatever project they're in, and capacity. And so we're really excited about the direction. And so we started with the Telegram CRM to keep control of all conversations, and we hope to expand from there.
Huh. I'm thinking back to 2017, 2018 when IBM had Hyperledger. I haven't looked at institutions for a while, but you had this coalition of organizations like hedge funds and stuff who were sharing similar information and their data. So you're saying what you build is not at that corporate only level, but at a level that founders, entrepreneurs, and everybody who was on Telegram can use to share in this coalition kind of format.
Close. I think the way that I would describe it is that we started with the core problem of sales operations and being able to manage those conversations and allow teams to really know where they are in a pipeline, where they are conversing, who's in that convo, and have visibility into their team's comms. In a traditional CRM, that's usually populated by an email, where if you send an email, it updates automatically in the CRM. Everyone's able to see that, and that brings all the data in automatically. In Web2, right, in those CRMs, what I didn't want to build was a CRM that did the exact same thing as those tool sets. That felt like that was optimizing for a current problem, as opposed to building for the direction of the future, right? So now that we've released the Telegram CRM, which is a different build than the traditional CRM, which I scrapped a while ago, I see a much more exciting future now where instead of using a tool like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, where LinkedIn owns all that data, or Zoom Info, or Apollo, or Clearbit, where they run scrapers and they own that data and it's commoditized, bought and sold for the cheapest amount. The future that I see is a world where the organization can own their own data, and then using credentials or using all this amazing info that's been built over the past year, we can replace that data layer from a centralized authority owning it to the org and the individual. And we can really solve all those problems I was originally talking about, the fluidity of contribution and on what channel they're in, and bring all that into the CRM. So if you're able to prospect, connect, you can pull that data into the CRM. We had to start chicken or the egg. We started with the CRM first, and then we see a much better way to expand and make B2B efficient with all the new data and all the new infra. So like our big thesis is really not to recreate the wheel. We just want to enable everything that's been built, that's been fantastic over the last year, to create a new utility layer. And so one thing that I tell candidates when they apply to work for 3RM, a lot of them are from the Web2 space and generally very curious. What I like to explain is that Web3 has, or let's call it the decentralized internet, because I think it needs new branding. But the decentralized internet has gotten more adoption as utility has been created. So when Web3 was really getting off the ground, DeFi and DAOs, right? At East Denver a year ago, everyone was talking about DAOs and how it's this new wave, right? Those were utility layers that were created. Since then, we've seen decentralized science bring in a ton of new people. We've seen decentralized social starting to blossom. And so what I think we can create is another utility that brings in more adoption from a place where people understand the benefits of Web3 as opposed to technology. A really simple example is that I was brought in when I bought ENS and I got my Zac Efron.eth. I had that utility where it made sense. It clicked for me. And so what we're trying to do is create a new utility layer that will make sense to enterprise B2B. And hopefully some point we can go across the chasm into Web2, and anyone from Web2 wants to sell into Web3 can use 3RM to find those projects, find those decision makers, and be able to connect and scale. And so it's a really grand vision, but it stems from this deep rooted problem that I had where I know what efficient sales operations looks like in Web2. You can sit down and have 1,000 leads geared up, phone numbers, emails, multi-touch point campaigns, where my time is optimized as a salary based off of what I acquire from those calls. And in Web3, none of that is possible right now. And so my belief is that if we can enable that, we can really unlock the true value, which is the benefits of Web3 technology, as opposed to the, I don't know, what's it called, but as opposed to what people are selling now, it feels like people aren't selling the benefits as much as the technology. And we want to make the benefits highlighted more. And so if we can unlock that, I think we can do a lot of good for the space.
I understand. I got it. That sounds good to me. And I was about to ask you, what the role of CRMs has been up to this point, and why will your change be important and necessary going forward? Um, yeah, you just answered that. So,
I can expand on that a little bit more though too, because I think
sure.
CRMs are super interesting in the fact that I believe 7 CRM companies are unicorns right now. I think it's one of the fastest growing markets. We see personal CRMs. We see CRMs originally starting from these tools like HubSpot that provide hundreds of different properties for every business and every customer type, to them now being segmented based off of the industries. You can find CRMs for car washes now. You can find CRMs for accounting, and this sort of customization is really making the market emerge. My instinct tells me that with the benefits of Web3, we can change a lot of those properties to be generated by the user. So if I'm going for an under collateralized loan in the future, I could share my reputation score, I could share my credit score, I could share my email, and that goes into that other party's CRM to where the properties are generated by the interaction as opposed to the CRM being pre-populated for the industry. So what I'm trying to envision is that there is these benefits of technology that are being created, and I don't think they're being utilized properly. So an example is I have a very close friend named Wojtek who's building Mastery.xyz. And with Mastery, you're able to search all sorts of on-chain resumes to find the top talent in Web3. And that is really, really effective. But the utility layer there is that it's very hard to track those conversations, track where that candidate is, track the information that you have from a Web3 perspective. So if we're able to build a CRM that builds into that tooling, we can start making our CRM work with all sorts of products depending on the business type that the Web3 project is in. So we're taking a new sort of refreshing look into, okay, let's not basically just clone Web2 CRMs and slap a wallet on it and call it a day. That can lead to a lot of data tracking that can be wrong. If you don't know your wallet's being tracked, you can, all of a sudden find out that people are getting way more info on you than you'd like. The future we're building towards is, okay, what if we enable this technology and do all sorts of exciting things with it? I mean, imagine quests or community management, or seeing what people are doing in your ecosystem, what builders are going. There's so many different relationship types that we can now bring in from all of this new data. And that's where I think we're doing something that I'm super excited about, because I think it's really, really interesting to build into a new landscape of technology and the benefits of it, because we get to try so many new exciting things. We're not just copying a playbook that already exists. We're trying to work with all of our partners, all of our users, to figure out how can we get them connected quicker? How can we get the data they need better? How can we keep enhancing their customer relationships? And one thing the last note I'll add on this, and something that I've kind of been juggling a lot through our build process, is that in Web 2, sales enablement is so incredibly automated right now, where you can have multi-touch point campaigns where emails, LinkedIn's, it does everything for you automatically. That's not really possible in Telegram, in Twitter, in wallet-to-wallet messaging. So we're sort of bringing this social selling element and the humanity back into these connections, where when I connect with someone on Telegram, that's because they know me and we've made a human connection, human interaction. And so what we're doing as well is we're bringing the human utility or human value back into sales in addition to this larger landscape. And so I'm really, really thrilled with sort of what we stand for and what our principles are as a company, because I think as a company, we really want to pioneer. We really want projects to be excited about what we're doing, because we really want to make them better and showcase them on a much grander scale.
Please do that. It's necessary and it's needed. And I'm looking at the perspective of what you said about finding talent, right? In Web 2, when people apply for jobs, you get 5 minutes later after you apply on a website, you get an automated response. Oh, we carefully reviewed your credentials and we decided, no, you didn't. You put it in your bot, you know? Um,
Yeah, it's funny too, because I just sourced we hired 4 new people, and so I decided as a founder I wanted to source all the candidates. So I have about, maybe I'll say conservatively, 200 meetings in the month of January, where I was sourcing every candidate from sunrise to sundown. And I would say 30% of them were able to make up credentials on LinkedIn. They were lying about their background. They were exaggerating on what they did. When you look at things like Coursera or Google Ad certificates, that's only a PDF. So one thing that I've been really experimenting with this year is I have a couple of Web 2 B2B enterprise conferences that I'm going to. And I'm getting a booth and I'm just saying, ask me anything about Web 3. We have about 2,000 organizations who signed up to our product, who I've intimately taken the time to read about what they're doing. And my goal there is to then connect Web 2 people to Web 3 projects to say, hey, there's this new benefits that are coming out. You should talk to these companies. And if we can start facilitating those introductions to make those issues like LinkedIn being fake data better, and we can make our CRM more valuable, we can shape the direction that the space needs to go. So we're taking it really upon ourselves to say, okay, if these benefits can outweigh the problems so much more, we should really focus only on the benefits, not the technology. And so many founders, I think, in Web3 get so obsessed with, what is going on chain, how the process is, what you need to do, that I think it scares away a lot of people, as opposed to saying, oh, wow, the benefit is they can't lie about where they worked historically. What that would do for recruiting, tremendous. And then a CRM there to manage that relationship. And if we make that enabled, we can really unlock a lot more in the space.
I agree with you. I'm with you 100% there. So let's talk about the utility of Telegram, because the utility of your company depends upon the utility of Telegram, a little bit at least. How has
Yeah.
Telegram been either an effective or ineffective CRM, right? And how can we collectively move beyond it to have more efficient platforms?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So One thing that I think is really important about Web3, and one thing that I've really come to enjoy, is that people can exist however they want to exist. They can be a contributor, they can be a full-time employee, they can be anon, they can be whatever they want. So we start with Telegram because that's the biggest addressable problem right now. I think the main goal, what would be really exciting, is if we can bring in other silo channels. If we could bring in your Twitter DMs, if we could bring in, your Discord messages, if we could bring in these other channels that aren't being previously brought in. One thing that I think we do really, really exciting right now is we actually have in our Telegram integration, it's only folders. So you're able to pick and choose using a folder which conversations you want to bring back. You're not sending everything back. And so what folders allows you to do is say, these are the combos that my team needs to see. And those are the only things that we bring in. So it's really a difficult game of saying, what do we bring in? What don't, what's personal, what isn't, right? How do we get this level of effective sales operations while protecting not only our customer, but also our customer's customer, right? And so that's one fine line that we're really walking along in. And so an example that I love to use is that we have developed a really great relationship with Magic Eden. Magic Eden, when you go to solana.com/ecosystem, it shows every project on Solana. Magic Eden's right there on the main screen. If you're a new grantee or someone building in the space, or you want to sell directly to Magic Eden, you click on that page, Magic Eden's bio, and it only shows their Discord and their Twitter. You don't know, okay, how do I sell into this project? You click on their Twitter, nothing's listed. I can't sell. Where do I go? Do I just DM the main account with 100,000 followers? Well, it turns out their head of VD and head of partnerships is completely anon, and he exists on Twitter as completely anon. So you can imagine what his inbox looks like, but I know that because I have a relationship with him. No one else knows that because he's not linked anywhere. So if we're able to bring in his Twitter messages to some point, he can remain anon, he can exist in Twitter, he can exist however he wants to exist, and we can make operations work around that. So I don't know if it's necessarily diving all the way in on Telegram forever. I just know that Telegram is a really great communication tool that is allowing people to globally connect a lot more fluidly, easier for discovery. And we want to do that for other channels as well, so that way we can keep enabling any team to exist however they want without needing the vanity metrics of, are you verified, are you have an X amount of followers or whatever. I think there's a lot we can do around, sort of where you exist and what value you bring. And that's what we really want to focus on in sort of the next level of prospecting and enrichment.
I agree. I've been on Telegram for years, and I'm in a few groups. So yes, I agree with you. Um, and I'm trying to think here, especially with the
Well,
CRM.
can I ask you a question? Can I ask
Sure.
you a question, if that's okay?
Yeah.
I would love to get
Yeah.
your perspective on this. I'd love to know, like, when you're trying to find new guests or you're trying to find interesting projects and you're trying to get in touch with those people. I'm sure you're pitched a lot, but if the shoe is on the other foot, how are you currently managing, that process of discovery for guests, having them respond to you, knowing you're real? How do you track all that in the groups that you're in? How do you run your operations right now from whatever channels you prefer?
I have relationships with the PR firms, and I help them. Their associates get paid to place, so I help the associates place their clients, and that's one way. The other way is I don't say no. So if I meet somebody at a conference who wants to be on my show, or if I have someone reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, ask me to be on the show, I don't say no. I say yes, and because the more that I learn, I think the better equipped I am for the future. And I help people draw out their thought leadership. So I think I'm providing a service. So as many relationships as I can have, bring to the table. That's how I do it.
It's awesome. I love that. And I think the not saying no thing is something I adhere to. Anyone who DMs me, it doesn't matter if it's a scam or not, I reply right away. I think but when you have so many channels that are coming in, it's very difficult to share that and have that going fluent. So I would love to know, like, let's say there is a project that you want to bring onto the show. How would you go about that now, right, from your outreach perspective?
Um, right now, I don't know who their PR firm is, so I go to Twitter or I go to LinkedIn. And if I'm on a channel, if I'm on Discord, then I'll go Discord or Slack. I mean, I'll ask. And sometimes they say yes, and a lot of times they say no, or a lot of times they don't answer. but you know, but there's 8 billion people or more in the world, and I have a weekly podcast where I do two or three or one a week, so I'm never going to run out of people.
Right.
Have I gotten everybody who I wanted? No, but have I gotten some amazing, amazing, absolutely amazing people? Yeah.
You have, yeah. I definitely love that answer. I think it's, there's 700 million monthly active Telegram users, and I think this idea of more social communication is really, really important. And I think social communication is something, we want to bring into. So I think that's a perfect answer. I think bringing those channels in and being able to provide, that service that allows you to be able to track and manage and have all the details you need in one spot is what we want to build.
So yeah, so I would love to see that. And I'm thinking here, if we had that in place, would you have the cultural wars that are happening within the Celsius network or the Voyager network or the FTX network? Would have these implosions happen to begin with? If we had the right CRM and the right tool in place, what do you think?
It's funny. I've thought about this quite a bit because, like I was saying a year ago when I was doing this, no one really saw the need for this. Everyone was, going to conferences. The bull market was in place. Wag me attitude was huge. That no one really found the need for that. And I feel like if we were able to create this ability for you to not only visualize ecosystems better, but connect beyond those ecosystems, you're not held at the mercy of only one centralized authority who could crash. And so I don't know if we'd be able to prevent it. I think we would just be able to create more opportunities and less reliance on one giant figure. And so I think when we look at interoperability, we look at multi-chain, we look at where the landscape is moving, my hope is that we'll be able to build something that allows projects to really reach beyond what they think their current ecosystem is. I think if we can do that, we can protect a lot of companies ultimately by giving them more fail safes, if you want to call it that, and allowing them to be a lot wider in their reach and not so focused only on just one ecosystem and one platform. And so that's what my hope would be for the future. I just don't know if we'll be able to stop anything quite yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking how to. Yeah, I see that. Um, I want to talk a little bit then about TradFi. My wife has a friend. She's an investment banker. They asked her for a list of contacts. She put a list of 10 names together and got paid $1 million for that list. Right. The expectation in Web3 is a little different, right? Um, I've had people tell me that I'm going to introduce them to guests that I've had on my podcasts. I say, "Oh, really? You know, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Like, why am I gonna introduce somebody to you and I don't even know you? You know, um, what do you what do you think about relationships being handed over? You know, just like what? How do we strike that balance between collaboration and between you know making an introduction to somebody who might be on the shady side?
That's a great question. So, one analogy that I really like to use is that in Web 2, account executives, they typically stay in the same industry and they'll move company to company, just reselling to their same contact list. And I think right now, it's very easy for technical people to have their proof of work on chain through a GitHub commit or a contribution or whatever that is. For non-technical people, people with an audience from a marketing perspective or customer success or sales, there is no way to really bring those connections and bring that value derived on chain into your resume and to show the value you bring to a protocol. One thing that I would really love to build is that inside of Web3, if you're able to connect, sorry, inside of 3RM, when you connect with other projects, if you are able to, let's say you and I are connected now through this interview, you should be able to see my entire network of everyone that I'm connected to. If you're able to see that, it would be really, really cool for then you to say, hey, I want to chat with Alex Lynn. And I'm able to fulfill that introduction. And me fulfilling that is now brought in and could be on chain. I don't know if the benefit of that yet, but it now is filled in. Now my proof of doing that and having a valuable large network is there. And I think what would be really exciting is if we could do this for ecosystems, for VCs, for anyone who is in the space of connecting. I think we can really showcase the value of your network. And I think being able to now showcase the value of your network and showcase the value of your introductions is going to really parallel that enterprise Web 2 analogy that I used a minute ago, to where now if everyone in Web 3 knows my network and they want me to sell their project to one of my connections, they can just come to me where I'm in the same industry. I'm just selling my contacts different products now. So instead of me being tied to employment, I can be tied to my network and I can own access to my network and own access to the value that I create. And so that's one vision that I think we could do down way down the road, not anything on the foreseeable like near future. But that's one thing that I think the value of what we're creating can really unlock is that now with everything being tied and intertwined, not only bringing the value of your network on, to this platform, we're bringing the value of introductions beyond that. And so one thing that I think is that that reputation if we are introducing to also absolves you from these are shady connections, good connections, what have you, because that can all be brought and now visible. And so you have a track record now, and that's where reputation score can tie into it. And so that kind of goes back to the point I spoke about a while ago of enabling the current infrastructure that's been built. We don't want to build the reputation score. We don't want to build the credentials for these things. We want to enable the technology and the amazing teams that have put this together and that are in our ecosystem to allow their tools to be used in a CRM view or in a B2B sales enablement view. And so I think that's one really, really exciting challenge that we're tackling is that we're just trying to enable all this tooling to work in a new utility layer of B2B.
I want to touch on reputation a little bit. Um, so there's actual reputation score, right? And there's the reputation of, hey, did I introduce you to somebody who you gave your money to and that person split, and you lost all your money, then our relationship is ruined, right? So how do you compare the relationship score versus the actual relationship, and how do you cultivate the actual relationship in this space?
So one thing that I think could do really well on this is the value of bringing that on chain is also the ability to see the results on chain as well. So one example that I think is a really good parallel to this is Google Tag Converter, it's Google Tag Manager. You're able to set up a bunch of variety of conversions on your website to see who's clicked what they've done, and then you're able to see attribution of what that led to in dollars and cents, or what that led to in any other category you're trying to measure. I think with influencer marketing, you pay an influencer and you're able to measure through their specific link how much money that influencer brought in from their audience. I think that could be very similar to Web3, where if you're able to say, I was the introduction here, now this person did this on chain, that's the result of my introduction. And so I think if this really amazing benefit of visibility and transparency will unlock that a lot more than traditional Web2 silos. And so that's one thing that I'm constantly thinking about is these benefits are really shaping a fantastic new internet that gives more trust and more visibility, more ownership over your own data and access to that data. And I think if we're able to really bring those views in from a business intelligence perspective, we can unlock a lot of those exact questions and the answers to those questions. However, there is so much nuance in what people care to share or how they're tracked or what is being brought across. And so we have a really difficult fine line to walk as a sales enablement company of, like I said before, making sure that sales and operations are valuable, but we're still protecting user data and our customer's customer, which I also think is super important. And so one analogy to that was when I first built a Telegram CRM, I synced everything. And I felt like it was really unfair to not only the people inside of the group from our customers base, but the other people they were talking to. They didn't know they were being tracked. And so that's where we really had to deviate and say, okay, how do we make tools that allow this to be efficient and still protect the important integrity privacy? And so those are really tricky questions that I don't think I have a clear answer for, but that's something we're definitely working to resolving.
All right. So then I have one last question before the final. Actually, two questions. The first one is this: is you mentioned influencer marketing, and I've always had a motto that bots don't buy. Bots don't buy. They don't listen. They don't read. They don't do any of that. You know. Yet you see people who have 500,000 followers, and maybe they know five. people. Like, how do you get beyond the fake numbers to what somebody's relationship impact truly is?
That's a really good question. So, one thing that I've gotten pretty excited about recently is when you look at our CRM and you look at this idea of having access to your network and your connections that you've made through 3RM, if you're able to also view POAPs and be able to see where people are at the same time, that's another new utility layer that our CRM brings out. So you're able to say, okay, I'm at East Denver. Who else has the East Denver POAP, proving that they're real and they're in attendance? I can now see everyone in my CRM that has that POAP because they've released that, hopefully, to my CRM in my view. And so I think that there is a lot of emerging technology that's going to really create more value in what you're doing and what you've accomplished as opposed to just existing. And I think if we're able to bring those in using credentials, using DIDs, using POAPs, using all, Mint Kudos is another great example. If we're able to bring in these tools that are enabling community growth, enabling participation, I think we'll be able to really cut through a lot of that noise that isn't really valuable at the end of the day. But we still want to remain very focused on our concentration of being B2B and external facing. So a lot of the current quote unquote Web3 CRMs that I see now, they're really focused on indexing their internal communities and their internal users and their internal, community members, I think I already said. But my instinct says that, whitelist communities share NFT projects share whitelist spots with other NFT projects. Alpha groups share other projects with each other. I have a fear that it's going to index a lot of the same people. So our big mission is also focusing only on external facing. And so if we stay concentrated and focused on external facing, I think that value will be brought out with actual participation and what people are doing. And that's where the reputation and engagement really comes into play. So what we want to do is really focus only on external. We're not really too concerned about your internal value. I know there's a lot of great products that we connect with that are doing that for more consumer facing, more NFT projects, things of that nature to find your whale, find whoever you're looking for. But I think we can unlock a different direction for more B2B perspectives. And so that's what we really want to make sure is we stay really narrow on that vision. And we don't want to go back and try to do too much before we get down, but we're doing really well right
That makes all the sense in the world to me. It does. Great.
now.
Yeah. So I now the final question. I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I love learning more about your company, and I'm looking forward to all the great things you're up to. And my final question is, how can people find out more information about you, about 3RM, keep up to date on what you guys are up to? How can they do that?
Yeah, I'm really love Twitter a ton. You can DM me, you can follow me. My Twitter name is 0x Jackson _. We use the 3RM count quite a bit too. That's 3RM_co, I think, on Twitter. You can go to our website, 3rm.co. We are actively onboarding organizations right now to our Telegram CRM. Like I said before, that's a direct integration now. And so we're taking the time to really sit down and learn all these processes. I'm an open book. I love meeting everyone, so I answer all DMs. I take time to learn about projects similar to you, and I love broadening and expanding the space. I'm really passionate about, I think, things that I'm really passionate about the lifetime value of what we're all doing here. I'm not passionate about, short-term wins or short-term conversions. I'm really passionate about what we're all still doing in this space and going towards. And so if you're still listening, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about what you're doing. I'd love to show you to other people. I'd love to connect and I think what you're doing is great. And I love what you're doing with the podcast and highlighting, everyone who wants to be a part of it. I think there's a lot of really important voices that need to be heard. And so I'm really happy to be here, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.